The first time Hannah Ramey saw the flyer, it looked like a window cut into a different world. The paper was gray from too many photocopies. The edges curled. The typography half obscene and half elegant. The faces of the bands smudged into masks. It was taped to a corkboard at side door records, a shop you only found if you ignored the lighted entrance and walked around the building to the painted door where the brickwork bled punk stickers. The moment she slid it off the tack and into her tote, she knew she would have to fight for it. She didn't expect the first punch to land at her own front door. Her mother, Sharon, snatched the flyer before the screen door even clapped shut. Absolutely not. The paper crackled in her hand. She didn't look up at Hannah or at Evan, Hannah's lanky cousin, who was still laughing about a cassette they'd found in the back bin. Sharon's eyes were pinned to the photo of the headliner's singer, a figure in a balaclava with fake blood at the mouth. You aren't going to a place that sells poison to children and calls it music. You've dropped me off at shows before, Hannah said, careful to keep her voice level. At Paradise. At the Civic Center. You don't even go to church more than a few times a year. And now you're fighting satanic panic on a Thursday? It says atheist right there. Sharon flicked the paper with a fingernail. Atheist. I read. That's a band name. Shrine of Static isn't a literal shrine. Either, Evan said, too quick to defend. He pointed to the flyer, then seemed to realize he'd pointed at the bloody-mouthed man and pulled his hand back. It's theater. Like shock art. They're not sacrificing goats on the stage. Sharon's mouth tightened until her lipstick shone like a red line drawn by a ruler. You go to something like this, and you'll come back brainwashed or queer or worse. Evan flinched as if she'd spit on him. The laugh that had been in his throat broke into silence. Hannah's cheeks went hot rage blooming, then freezing into clarity. Real nice, Hannah said. Soft and lethal. You sound just like Uncle Frank. Sharon, already regretting the sentence you couldn't unsay, reached a hand toward Evan. Honey, I didn't mean. But he was already out the door, legs long and wild, scraping his bike from the porch. Foot on the pedal and gone down Cherry Hills, churned gravel like gravity had agreed to loan him speed. Hannah waited for the slam of the screen and gave it back, shutting her bedroom door with the kind of punctuation that makes a point. Through the thin walls, her mother's voice chased her. Under no circumstances are you driving to Knoxville. I forbid it. Hannah, I forbid it. The words rattled the mobile home's frame as if saying them louder could hammer them into law. Hannah pressed the heel of her hand to her eyes and counted backward from 20 until she could breathe. Under the small window that overlooked the driveway, the old vanity mirror her mother had junked years ago stood resurrected, its bulbs half working, its frame scabbed with glue where Hannah had decorated it with bottle caps. The glass reflected the room she'd grown up in, white walls that had learned to hold posters. Handbills. A strip of photos of her and Marla squeezed together. Tongues out. Laughter sharp as cut glass. On the corner of the mirror, hanging from a thumbtack, were the keys to the Chevy. The vet. Her brother Adam had called it. A private joke that made the hatchback feel like a hot rod. He'd bought the car washing neighbors' driveways and scrubbing oil out of parking lots. When Adam had finally left Clay Morgan for a welding job up in North Dakota, real money, he'd whispered to Hannah in the dark kitchen the night before he left, put the keys in her palm, as if he were handing her a permission slip for a life. Take care of her, he'd said, and don't be afraid to go somewhere I've never been. Hannah looked at the keys and knew there was no universe where she and Evan and Marla and Cole were not going to that show. What she didn't feel, not even once, was the other engine starting elsewhere, loud as a heartbeat, quiet as a decision. Windsor Court wore the color of dust. The trailers were lined up neat as bite marks. The grass chewed down to hardy stubs. The porches stacked with buckets and folded chairs. The evening smelled like hot tar and creak breath. When Mira stepped over the threshold with two men behind her, she felt like a trespasser in her own skin. The older one was unremarkable in the same careful way that a bank teller is unremarkable. His windbreaker was clean. His gray hair made a halo of him he hadn't earned. "Miss Mira," he said, as if her name were a title, something an office could issue. "I'm Mr. Caldwell. This is Vance." The other man wore a black pea coat despite the heavy garment that hung from his shoulders like iron. His eyes were coal that remembered fire. "Door," Caldwell said, gesturing, and Vance threw the bolt with a meaty click. "This isn't my home," Mira said. Her hands itched, not from fear, but from the sunburn that reached in and clawed. Her lips felt too dry. The room around her was too loud with details: the floral couch, where people had once watched TV. The crocheted throw that nobody touched anymore. The faint copper that rode the air like a memory. "Just get me to the highway, and I'm gone. I have people. I can keep them safe." Caldwell smiled in the way of people who soften what they're about to say, the way a doctor softens a diagnosis. "Your people are exactly why you can't go to them. Not yet. Not while you're all sharp edges and thirst." Vance's voice was low and even. "City's a buffet. You can feed without being a headline. Out here, everybody's a cousin. You cause an accident, the whole county comes to look. It's different. There are rules." "My boyfriend," Mira started, then swallowed the pronoun because there was no word for the person who had kissed her and killed her life and given her another. "He told me things." "He taught you to hide your teeth," Vance said. "Maybe to look away when someone mirrors you so you don't see what you've become." "Did he teach you to close a wound? Did he teach you how to not drink past the point where someone stops waking up?" He tilted his head, listening to her silence. "I figured." Caldwell lifted a small mason jar from the coffee table. He twisted the lid, and the room filled with a smell like something dug up from a shallow grave, earth and rot, and a sweetness fallen out of season. "Miss Odessa makes this," he said, "for the burns. Sun's a different kind of mean for your kind. Regular healing leaves scars you'll hate." Mira recoiled. "I can't put that on my face." "Suit yourself." Her forearms still flickered with the memory of fire. She'd run this afternoon, panicked and half melted. The sun crawling into her bones, and she'd cut through a strip mall to a shade that wasn't shade and woke on a patch of grass behind a dentist's office, cheek against a sprinkler head. When the van driver had held the door out to her, she'd stepped inside like a sleepwalker and seen the styrofoam cooler in the back. "Please," she said, "I have to be in Knoxville tonight." The word had a taste. "My friends are putting out an album, and they need to see my face in the crowd to know they made it out of their living rooms. I promised." "Promises are a currency you can't afford right now," Caldwell said. Vance reached into the avocado green fridge and lifted the cooler. When he popped the lid, a clean hospital smell rose: saline and tape and iron. He handed Miro a bag like a slick little life raft. "Drink," he said, "then we'll talk." She pressed the spout to her mouth the way she would have sipped a straw in a diner. The first swallow bit like cold, then sank into her with a warmth that was too swift to be called comfort. The edges of her vision softened. The house exhaled. Caldwell's voice moved into a register that felt almost like empathy. "You were made badly," he said, "and then you were abandoned. That's a crime where we count them. But the law isn't human law. Elder Reyes in Knoxville has agreed to sponsor you until you're tradable with the world. You owe him a debt. You're here because he said you should be looked after." "Elder Reyes?" Vance's expression tightened. "Reyes plays the gentleman until there's dirt under the suit." "Which is why you'll mind your manners," Caldwell said, lowering his voice until Mira had to lean forward to hear him. "The arrangement keeps everybody alive." "Not everybody," Vance said. Some of us were alive enough until somebody graced us with change. Mira thought about the man who had changed her, reckless and beautiful as a bottle thrown at a wall. She had 2 weeks of memories, music in a borrowed car, hands at the back of her neck, a laugh like a dare, then ash on a sidewalk at sunrise. I didn't ask for this, she said. I didn't want it. Most blessings don't look like blessings at the beginning, Caldwell said mildly. Eat. Rest. We'll talk when you're not burning. She smeared the salve on her arms. The pain gave up its seat the way a stranger gives up a spot on a bus, reluctant and grudging. The smell clung to her skin. When she closed her eyes, she could almost hear a crowd. At Cherry Hill, the air was a recipe Aquanet. Vanilla, gasoline, and cut grass. Marla had already laid out the arsenal on the vanity, a cornmeal powder compact, a drugstore palette of eyeshadows named after fruits that had never existed, a carefully hoarded black lipstick found on clearance after Halloween. Cole sat on the daybed, trying to be still while Evan painted his nails purple glitter. When Hannah stepped into the doorway, her friends were mid-laughter, a synchronized falling apart only crews achieve. Cole struck a bodybuilder pose to showcase the fresh paint on his fingers. Then Winston grabbed his knee on reflex. The brace under his jeans had saved him from surgery, but not from a different kind of grief. I need a nickname, Cole said. Cole sounds like a rock you trip over. You don't get to pick your own, Marla said crisply, her liner sharp as a wing. Best ones are earned. The worst ones are accidents. I'll take accident over born with, Cole said, almost smiling. Also, I like the name Thorn. Nobody is calling you Thorn, Evan said, appalled. You already look like the good twin in a soap opera. Thorn's the bad twin. Hannah let the sound of them fill the room. There was a joy found in other people's noise, a kind of relief that kept the hard thoughts from wriggling out of the basket where she'd stuffed them, her mother's words. Uncle Frank's orbit. The way her brother's calls got shorter as his hours got longer. She sat, scooped pale powder, dusted it until her freckles surrendered, then drew the black across her lids until the mirror told the right story. There it was. The person she built every time she needed armor. Cheekbones made of resolve. Lips made of a vow she hadn't found the exact language for yet. She watched Marla paint on her mouth with the patience of a saint and the precision of a burglar. By sunset, they were dressed for the night, though the night hadn't arrived. Black denim on black cotton. An army dressed as a bruise. Hannah swung the door of the Chevy and scanned the back seat. She yanked out 2 aprons from her grocery store shift. A cardigan that needed washing. A then and now photo of her and Adam taped to an old junkyard pass that fluttered like a prayer flag. Ladies up front, Marla announced. Boys in the back. You redistributing roles now? Cole asked. I am redistributing legroom. Evan blew on his still damp nails, careful not to smear them, then slid into the back and threw his arm over Cole's shoulder without asking. Cole made room without making a face about it. Hannah kept that fact like a pearl. She held the keys in her hand a second too long. I've never driven this far by myself, she said. You're not by yourself, Marla said. And you're never going to be if I have anything to say about it. Okay, Hannah said, and turned the key. The engine coughed, cleared its throat, and found a rhythm. Cherry Hill let them go. The mountain took them like a gate opening. The sky was lowering itself to meet the road. The strip of west still burning like it had a favor to ask. Caldwell called Sheriff Kincaid at a little after 9. The old wall phone rang in a kitchen in Baker's Gap, where the sheriff's wife was tucking a dish towel into the handle of the oven. She got out. Caldwell said, No hello. No apology. We told her to stay in. She didn't. Kincaid sighed. Ayers boys called it over CB. Saw a girl getting into a HVAC fan. Your girl. Words already running the ridges. Can you bring her back quietly? Could we ever bring anyone back quietly when it's Bird who decides to look? Kincaid said. Ravenlock is the name her mama gave her. But I've never known a more accurate nickname. If she puts her eyes on something, it usually ends up dead or in the back of a truck. Caldwell closed his eyes as if that could unmake the night. Vance leaned against the avocado refrigerator without speaking. Don't do anything stupid, Kincaid said. Softer. Bird plays by a different book. We all do, Caldwell said. That's the problem. He hung up and felt the house shift around him, as if the nails in the frame had loosened a hair. Vance stared through the wall like he could see the highway. She's going to Knoxville, he said. Everything is, Caldwell said. And when to find his keys. Knoxville at night is a river of neon. It slides over concrete, runs under viaducts where pigeons sleep with their heads tucked, spills over parking lots where boys pull their hats low and girls borrow one another's jackets. The venue tonight, a mid-sized brick box with a faded marquee, had a line that curled like a question mark. A tour bus idled. A diesel generator shuddered. The poster with the black-hooded singer was taped to a lamppost, flapping. From the back of a service van with a fake company name on the side, Mira stepped down as if the ground were testing her. The salve stink rode her like a second skin. A borrowed hoodie hid her arms. Black tights saved her ankles. She moved past a cluster of smokers whose laugh hit her like a slap of heat. The line smelled like sugar and hairspray and damp denim and 1,000 small heats that added up to a city of warmth. Mira? A girl said, bright and surprised. You made it. You looked. The girl trailed off, not finding a word that fit. Mira smiled without showing her mouth. Like I ran here, she said. It's a long story. Tell me after, the girl said, then was swallowed by the line. The venue's side door opened, and a man in a black polo waved her through with the hand gesture used for stray cats and VIPs. Backstage, the hallway was a tunnel of stickers layered on stickers. The paper fossil record of bands that had become houses and gardens and divorces. Mira touched the wall with her fingertips the way you touch a gravestone with names you don't know. Reyes is here, someone said, and the sentence went down the hall as if carried by mouths that didn't admit to being messengers. He was in the green room, where all couches are ugly and all lamps are dim. Elder Reyes was younger than Caldwell's description had made him in Myra's mind. His hair a careful black. His suit the color of an apology that cost money. He rose when she entered. You borrowed trouble, he said, and arrived anyway. I admire a consistent ethic, though I will invoice you for it later. I kept my promise, Mira said. They needed me here. Reyes's eyes flicked to the far corner where a boy with a guitar case was working his hand the way pitchers warm their shoulders. People always think they come to save someone else, Reyes said. Sometimes that is true. More often, it is a trick they play on themselves to justify wanting to be where the noise is. Noise keeps you from hearing yourself too loudly, Mira said, then winced. She hadn't meant to sound clever. She didn't feel clever. She felt dangerous in all the wrong ways. Reyes smiled not kindly, not unkindly. You'll learn, he said. Tonight you'll learn something fast. What lesson? Survival keeps poor time when music is playing, Reyes said. So you have to choose who leads. He snapped his fingers, and a man in a venue t-shirt put a sealed bag of blood in Myra's hand with the efficiency of a bartender who's already guessed your order. Outside, Reyes said, there's a girl with powdered cheekbones and a boy with purple nails who will be remembered by you more clearly than most names. Keep an eye on them if you're planning to be noble. It's an optional assignment. Nobility costs. Mira almost asked how he knew who had come on the road with Hannah. But the answer was obvious if you accepted that some people knew the routes of others the way they knew their own neighborhoods. There were networks that weren't phones. There were maps that were drawn in something other than ink. You think they matter? She asked. Everyone matters to someone, he said. And some people matter to the night. It's an older order. Go earn an opinion about it. Miro obeyed because obedience was the cheapest choice. Hannah had parallel parked like a war hero and was too proud to show it. The chevet ticked as it cooled. A metal heartbeat. The marquee letters said Shrine of Static tonight only, and made a promise Hannah hadn't known she needed, that there are nights so singular you can baptize yourself in them and come out rinsed. The line shuffled forward. A pickup truck glided by the curb, its bed full of boys whose mouths shaped words and laughter that were not invitations. One shouted something ugly. Marla smiled without turning and reached for Hannah's hand like they were entering rich water. Inside, the smell changed. Bass that you feel before you hear. Beer that you don't want. The old wooden floor sweating history through its boards. The lights were mostly red. The stage was lit like a crime. Ladies' room now? Marla said. And Evan and Cole looked at each other with their eternal question, what do men do while women navigate the necessary territories? Evan solved it by grabbing Cole's sleeve and pointing at a poster on the wall that advertised a record release party for a college band with a name so earnest it made Hannah's teeth ache. Cole pretended interest until Marla returned with eyeliner newly militant and Hannah's lipstick reloaded. When the first band took the stage, the crowd pushed as if the room were breathing. The singer's voice was a saw blade that had learned melody. The guitars scraped the inside of Hannah's chest and made kindling. Halfway through the second song, a woman who didn't look like she belonged anywhere human entered through the front doors. Raven Locke had hunting camp written all over her boots like a verdict. Hair back in a tail.